Joe and Stacy, Task and Purpose recently dropped an article about strange military superstitions, like how an Army paratrooper had to carry their maroon berets on them at all times or risk bad luck. The same goes for Navy sailors whistling on the bridge, bringing bad juju to the ship. What superstitions have you guys heard of, if any?
See that it's sad to me that I didn't even know about the whistling on the bridge thing because I did so little Blue Side Navy.
But I could
Also,
see
I
you
would
being the guy walking along the plank. Is that called a plank? The gangway up to the bridge, like
Planks are for pirates.
yeah,
Are there
"Arr."
the
planks on
plank
real?
comes after the whistling. Then they make you get on the plank.
Ah,
I,
yeah, that makes sense.
I wore a maroon beret, and I never heard the one about carrying on you at all times or risk bad luck.
Maybe that explains some of the stubbed toes or hard
Oh
landings.
yeah,
Oh my
all
goodness.
those stub toes now make sense.
You know,
Mm.
the thing is, I don't know if I had I've heard of like any sort of military or unit or even squad level kind of like superstitions, but I don't know. At some point in my life, I had this sort of repeating number that I saw. Every time I saw a triple three, 333, and it became chronic. And I've done some reading on this too, that sometimes once you see a number, you never stop seeing that number. And so maybe it's coincidence or maybe it's just the number. I know our super producer Holly is totally into sort of astrology and the Yetis. So I'm sure she could, give us some expertise on why I see the number 333 all the time. But I digress.
Or we can go to the alphas. Let us know. Let us know what superstitions are out there that we missed that we should cover next time. And on that, let's get the show started.
This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. We have two guests from the Consortium for Health and Military Performance, otherwise known as CHAMP. CHAMP Deputy Director, Captain J. Russell Linderman, and Director of Operations, Supplement Safety, and Senior Nutrition Scientist, Andrea Lindsey, will chat with us about human performance, total force fitness, and more. But first, we have a few Bravo Zulus for an Alpha.
That's right. So Vicky oh goodness. So it's Vicky spelled out the symbol Sleshinsky 746 posted a comment on I swear I can read, guys. Posted a comment on an episode of our podcast on YouTube, and she said, during the pandemic, a Navy Sea Cadet youth squadron lost access to military bases to train and store their equipment. Since we have a large building, we took them in and they became part of the Legion family. It was a win-win for us because we signed up all the veteran parents and we started up an SAL squadron. So Bravo Zulu to Vicky Slasinski 746. Rolled it out that time, didn't I? And your post. It's wonderful to see how stepping up to meet a need, and now I can't read again, to meet a need in your community also helps you grow your Legion family. You rock, Vicky Slasinski 746.
Okay, Alphas, please.
Sorry.
Okay, Alphas, please stick around. We'll be right back for an interview with Captain Linderman and Andrea Lindsey right after the break.
Talking about suicide is hard, but the American Legion has joined forces with Columbia University to develop training for those who want to learn more about interacting and responding to veterans who may be in crisis. American Legion Be the One training. In the 90-minute class, you'll learn to understand the types of suicidal ideation and 4 behaviors that indicate imminent risk, how to use the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale to determine at-risk individuals, how to identify risk factors and warning signs, and how to communicate effectively with individuals who may be at risk of hurting themselves. Online and in-person sessions are available. Visit betheone.org/training to find a session. Learn the skills that'll give you the confidence to talk about suicide and be the one to save just one veteran.
Hi, Alphas. Welcome back. It's time to chat with our special guests. Today, we're joined with Captain J. Russell Linderman, call sign Crazy Juice. He says that will remain classified for the rest of his life. Anyway, he serves as the Deputy Director of the Consortium of Health and Military Performance, also known as CHAMP. And we also have Andrea T. Lindsey. She is the CHAMP Director of Operation Supplement Safety and the Senior Nutrition Scientist. Man, that's a mouthful. I'm sure you lead with that every time you go to shake someone's hand. Anyway, Captain Linderman and Andrea, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here today.
Yes, thank you for having us. And it's always a pleasure to be able to talk about something near and dear to my heart, human performance optimization and the Consortium for Health and Military Performance.
I'm so happy you guys are here. It means a lot to me for you guys to take time out of your busy schedule. I got a couple of questions here, but I'm going to start with, can you tell us what CHAMP is, how it began, who it serves? And a side question is, did you use the term consortium so that Marines wouldn't try to copy it because they can't spell it? Sorry to throw you off. Can you tell us about CHAMP?
I'll let Captain Lindeman field that first question.
It's the story goes a little, it goes fairly far back. So it really CHAMP began as a exercise laboratory in the Department of Medicine and Physiology and Biochemistry at the Uniformed Services University, and that was back in 1979. And it was really when they hired Dr. Doyster, and I believe it was in the mid-1980s when they hired her. And that's really when kind of CHAMP kind of took off. And from 85 to 89, they focused more on human performance research and ways to emphasize wellness. And that continued, through into the 90s. And then, they started getting a reputation. In fact, some of the things that they helped publish at that point in time were the Navy SEAL Nutrition Guide. They published the Navy SEAL Physical Fitness Guide. And they also did a Force Health Protection, Nutrition, and Exercise Resource Manual, and those were all in the 1990s. But when I think CHAMP really came to prominence was in the middle 2000s. There was a pivotal conference that was held in 2006, and then again in 2007. And this one was really requested by the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time. And the request was to get after health and fitness for military members, because at the time, the military was in an age of sustained conflict. There were continuous optimal performance challenges, and some of the injuries that were being seen at that point in time weren't necessarily physical injuries. Some of them were psychological, maybe it was social. And so to kind of get after that, he wanted to bring together subject matter experts in a variety of areas to see how we could focus on a more holistic and preventative approach to human performance optimization. And hence, that's when CHAMP, the Consortium for Health and Military Performance, really came into existence. And it was in 2012 that they were actually designated a Center of Excellence. It's a warehouse for human performance optimization and total force fitness information, so that people know it's a tried and true resource, and that they can come to CHAMP to get evidence-based information that's been translated into educational materials so that they can use them. And my unofficial tagline for CHAMP is CHAMP, made for the military and good for you. And the U is anybody that can actually get onto a computer or onto a phone and navigate to our website, either hprc-online.org or ops. You get to those websites, there's a treasure trove of information there that focuses on health and fitness. That was a very long answer to your question.
No, I love it. And what's really great is the timing. I don't think that anybody realized how big the world was going to grow starting around that same time frame, where all of a sudden everyone had access to the internet. and we started isolating ourselves. We're in the, the beginning stages of like you mentioned, a really long war. So I think that it really showed up at the right time. Thanks so much for the answer. It wasn't too long. That was perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I would just add that it seems like CHAMP really kind of started to come to prominence, around the time that I was getting out. So I commissioned in 2006 as an aviation officer, and pretty heads down, doing the work until I saw my brother get medically retired for TBI and PTSD. And then it was like, hey, where are all the programs? Where are the resources? Why are things not working the way that they should? And really began to peel back the layers of not just fitness, but true wellness. So as looking at CHAMP, I would say it's seemingly a lot of these programs. There's a lot more available really within the last 10 years, far more seemingly so, at least from my perspective, than when I was in. But what are some of the differentiators from CHAMP from other fitness and wellness programs from your perspective, Captain Linderman?
I think really it's the holistic approach to healthcare. And one of the things I like to show or talk about is, like, right now, CHAMP has never been more important because we're in a situation where we have less than ever individuals that are able to actually come into the military. So we've got less than 23% of the population from the key recruiting group of 17 to 24 actually able to come in the military for one reason or another. Additionally, if you remember, I think it was last November, they actually put out the annual statistics for life expectancy in the United States, and it dropped a little bit, and some of it can be explained away because of COVID and because of some other issues that are going on in the United States. But one of the things that there was an article that was put out, and I forget which medical review it was, but they said that one of the reasons why the United States is kind of maybe falling behind some of the other countries that are our peer group as far as the socioeconomic grouping, what they say is that the United States do a really good job of sick care, but they don't necessarily do a great job of preventative care. And this is where CHAMP comes into play. And a lot of it is, it's focused on the military members, which, it's a very active community. There's a lot going on. And so I think the programs here are designed, they're designed specifically for military members. But like I said, if you pull back, the evidence-based information that we're putting out is really good for anybody that has a heartbeat and a pulse. And it's one of those things where it is a preventative way of looking at things. It focuses on a lot of, we actually say there are 8 domains to total force fitness. Everything from psychological to social to spiritual to fitness to nutrition to medical dental to even financial. But CHAMP doesn't really focus on the financial. We leave that to the experts at Military One Source. But you look at it, our life is just more complex than just fitness and nutrition. There are other aspects to it. How well is your social network? How much sleep have you had? So CHAMP looks at those and the interactions between them to try and come up with a more holistic approach to fitness.
Thank you for that. I think when I was seeing my brother go through his challenges with TBI and PTSD, everything was seemingly so siloed, and it was hard to be able to look at the entirety and the breadth and depth of what was going on with his specific injury. So to hear you say that that's literally the focus of trying to take all these different dimensions and what'd you call it? Total warfighter fitness?
Total force fitness.
Total force fitness. I love that.
Yeah, so we say that the human performance optimization is the process, total force fitness is the framework. And I think you said it excellently there. It's just like how they're integrated together. And being able to have team members that are there that can understand that, hey, there's more to just the human being than just fitness. because like a lot of times when you say fitness, people think of exercise, but there's more to it than that. And what the needs might be for somebody that's sitting in the cockpit, the needs for the pilot or even like a drone operator may be different than the maintainers and, the operations officers that are there. So it's like, how can you focus on those differences? And so, there's this framework that Champ has been working on now for a long time that can help maybe tease out some of those differences. I know Andrea and I went to give a talk on ops actually this past year, and we went to an area where the population we were talking to were drone operators, and some of the concerns they have were a lot different than other MOSs in the military. So it can be very specific, and how you treat it may take a different approach.
Yeah. Well, and I think as you and Adam have been talking about, there's so much more to an individual that can impact how they function. And when I was researching Champ, I came upon the sort of human performance resource aspect of the website. And I went into a deep dive. I'm not going to lie. I spent quite a bit of time rooting around in there because there's a lot of content. So alphas, if you want, be sure to check out the website in the show notes. But anyway, as someone who struggles with sleep, I know that it impacts me very negatively, not just in my ability to concentrate and function, but I have a chronic health issue. And so one feeds the other, and they're kind of doing this vicious cycle. Anyway, so I spent some time in that segment, and I have long believed that my insomnia was largely attributed to my post-traumatic stress, obviously nightmares, things like that. But physiologically, when we were downrange, let's say I had to stand watch, or I was always in a sort of hyper alert state of being. Every time that I felt fatigue or I started to feel groggy or tired, my body would course adrenaline through my system to kind of wake me up. And then I got this sort of fear-based response whenever I felt tired. And that has carried through all the way to today. So giving you a little bit of background about myself, I've heard from many veterans that this is a pretty common sort of physiological response. Based on some of the sleep and stress modules that you have, what kind of tips, if any, come to mind when dealing with things like I am?
Well, Stacey, thank you for that background, and thank you for your service as well. And the first thing I would have to say is make sleep a priority. And I know it's funny, as somebody who's trained air crew and warfighters on human performance optimization, I would tell people a lot of times how to get a good night's sleep, and it's based on evidence and science that that is out there. But sometimes I myself didn't always do that. Now I've made it a priority. But we have on the Champ website, we have actually sleep leader guides. We also have a checklist where you can check your sleep hygiene. Because obviously it sounds like sleep is a priority to you, but if you're not doing the right things to help you with that process, this checklist may be able to help you out. You can go through it and say, is the temperature just right? Is the lighting just right? I know, getting a good night's rest sometimes can be difficult, especially if you are forward deployed. And there are rocket attacks and other things that are going on, or even at home, when service members are at home and they're there with their family, and you've got young kids like I do at home, and they wake up in the middle of the night and you just got to sleep. And, so what can you do to help make that a priority? We even have tools on the website where you can actually see kind of what your sleep patterns are. And so, I would recommend anybody that's having issues like that, please go into our website, look at the leader guides that we have, look at some of the tools there, and make sleep a habit. It's almost like working out. It's, you go to the gym, you have a plan that you want to go there for to, get those big biceps or those big shoulder muscles. You got to have an approach to it. And it's the same thing with sleep. It's like you gotta figure out what the impediments are to a good night's sleep, and then see how you can get rid of those. and then, figure out what works for you to be able to help you to get the proper amount of sleep. And like I said, we've got resources at our website. And additionally, if those still don't get you to where you want to be, we have a function on our website called Ask the Expert. So you can really go, because this is just crazy juice talking right now. But if you really want to get somebody who is a subject matter expert in sleep, you can go onto our website and you can use our Ask the Expert function and ask them pointed and direct questions, and then they can get you answers that may be more helpful than just our sleep guides.
That's cool. I did not come across that, but I'm going to go back to the website and look for that expert.
It's in the upper right-hand corner on both OPS and our HPRC website.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Andrea,
Crazy Juice has got all the good info.
Well, I think Andrea does too, because she is one of the experts that answers a lot of the dietary supplement, and she's getting about 130 questions every month now on dietary supplements. So,
I was actually about to ask Andrea that, because so a little bit of background on me. I was a corpsman with 2-1 Marines, went over to Fallujah. I lost my left leg above the knee, right leg got banged up, right ankle is fused and doesn't bend anymore. The downside of that being no more cardio, which is also the upside. Problem is I've gotten a little bit later into age. I hit my 40s, and much to my chagrin, I realized that I couldn't ride my metabolism anymore, and I really needed to get my food right. And no matter how hard I worked out, I was not able to get lean until I fixed my food. It's sad to say to anyone listening, but it's 80% of getting healthy is body wise is that food, and it affected everything. When I got that straightened out, it helped out with my sleep. It helped out with everything. And so I want you to, if you will, Andre, tell us about the Operational Supplement Safety Program, who it serves and what it does, because it's crazy important. This nutrition and this supplement side of things is really a way bigger part of taking care of yourself than people have a clue until they do it.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that with us. Also for all of your services. It's very important. And I'm so happy to hear you say that, because we're always going to say, eat real food first. I mean, our bodies are designed, to eat, chew, swallow, digest, and all that nice synergistic stuff that happens when we do that, But moving on to Operation Supplement Safety, we also know that in certain situations, supplements may be necessary and may be helpful. But how did we come about, and why are we here? I like to say, we've been talking about, human performance resources by CHAMP. So we have two forward-facing websites, hprc-online.org and Operation Supplement Safety at opss.org. Back in about 2011, 2012, there were 2 products on the market, and the manufacturers of those products were claiming that an ingredient, DMAA, was natural from the geranium plant. And there were many, many, many adverse events and several deaths in the military, which we never want to see happen. And this is avoidable. And at the time, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs said we need a DoD-wide educational campaign on the safe use of dietary supplements. Now, 10 plus years later, we had policy issued in March of 2022, really mandating the program as the go-to program across DoD. So our audience is everyone. Certainly the service member, our audience are veterans, healthcare providers, all our allied health professionals. That includes our strength and conditioning coaches, our athletic trainers, nurses, occupational therapists. It runs the gamut. We get questions from judge advocates. CJ was mentioning 130 questions a month. It really spans across the board. But when it's from a service member, it is usually, can I take this? Is it safe? And am I going to pop positive? And I can kind of go through that a little bit because, of course, we can only answer that question from information that we find on a marketing website about a product. And we have a whole process that we go through to help answer those types of questions.
I wish you guys were around in the early 2000s, when just on the other side of Y2K, when I was training with my brother, and we would take the supplement Zinedrin, work out, do a rigorous workout, and then we would go outside in 100-degree Texas weather, and we would run 110s to prepare, because we had to do 16 of them timed on the first day back. And I would remember running and then like falling down and seeing stars, feeling like I was going to pass out. And our logic was, man, this is good. Like, it's really working. Like, we're getting a good workout in. So, I mean, obviously not the case, but it's a very, a young service member kind of mentality of like, I'm going to take whatever I need to for the desired impact in my health and my body and future Adam. I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm living right here, right now. So supplements obviously cover a wide range of options. What should service members and veterans consider when thinking of adding a supplement to their routine?
Well, I think we have to go back to the why. What is the goal? Have they worked with a dietitian or a provider to determine, do you need one? Have you had blood work? Have you had tests to show, are you low in something? Or are you in an extreme condition or a situation that maybe there is a need for something? So I think that that's such an important question because, when we see service members, for example, taking multiple products, they may not be aware that the combination of the ingredients, how can we possibly have data on the combination of all these ingredients and the different products? And could that potentially harm performance rather than enhance performance? So I think it really comes back to that why. Why do you feel you need it? Let's determine that and go from there. Because we can point to some resources, we can point to some evidence to help make that informed decision. And that really is the mission of ops. We are not here to say no to supplements. It's to allow all of our audience to be informed users so that they make safe supplement choices. So I think that's really an important point.
Yeah, I love that. Really kind of determining what is the intended outcome that I'm trying to achieve here, and what's kind of my best trajectory and glide slope, to that. And I know Stacy has a question, so I'll just maybe do kind of one relevant follow-up. Are there any key themes that you're seeing like starting to emerge in alignment with guidelines or recommendations based off the 130 or so questions that you're kind of receiving on a monthly basis now, which is evidence of the work that you guys are doing?
Well, that's a challenging question. Unfortunately, we get some questions, and we know some of our service members are taking these higher risk products and ingredients. And that would include maybe selective androgen receptor modulators or SARMs, some of these other unapproved drugs. Right now, we're also covering down on performance enhancing substances, and we see some questions related to that. So I think that these performance enhancing type products are obviously popular, and so that's the space that we sometimes find ourselves. And also weight loss, as Captain Linderman mentioned, we know we have an issue with service members not either just during the recruiting process making weight, and also when they're in the services. And so we know weight loss products, we get questions about some ingredients that are touted for weight loss as well.
Is it Crestor? Like, what's the current? There's like some medication now that I guess is all the celeb craze for losing weight, but I digress. Don't take it, folks. Just not worth it. If not, then just reach out.
Try chicken and rice first.
Right? So I want to switch back to the sort of mind body mindset thing really quick, if that's okay. Um, listen, I think I juggle about 1 billion tasks every day, which
She
is not
does.
uncommon for the human experience in 2024. A lot of me is sort of like operating on the threshold of burnout. And so when I was going down the rabbit hole on your website, I found something called the stress mindset. And I immediately thought about my coping mechanism of staying so busy that I can't think about the other things I've been avoiding. And I call that running from the crazy. Can you talk to me about what the stress mindset is? Is it a negative thing, a positive thing? And how can we self-check it?
Well, that's a great question. And I think as far as the stress mindset, it's really about how you perceive stress. You know, in life we have what's called eustress, which is positive stress, and then we have distress, which is that stress is the really negative one. And I think that's the one that most people think about when they hear the word stress, and they don't realize that there's really a positive aspect to it. You know, it's kind of like going back to the reference of weight training whenever I talked about that earlier. It's like, why do we weight train? We want to stress our muscles so that they then perform, and then they heal from that and they get stronger. And so if you have a positive stress mindset, you might be one of those individuals that like challenges. For instance, doing a podcast like this, some people may find that invigorating and find that a very positive stress, whereas others may find it a daunting and a challenging, stressful environment, and they may not like it as much. So how do you handle that? How do you approach that? Well, we've got some tools on the CHAMP website, or the HPRC website, that can help you look at that and figure out first of all, what your stress mindset is. And if you're the type of person that always, you think that, stress is bad, there are tools there that maybe can help you change your perception of stress and use it not as something that's bad, but use it as something that you can use to challenge yourself to help you get a little bit stronger. And even in those environments that you might not feel comfortable in, like for instance, public speaking, or maybe it could be doing, physical fitness or some other things, but you got to figure out, the things that you like and the things that you dislike. And then for the things that you dislike, how can you approach it so that you can even make those things that are somewhat stressful to you a positive? But like I said, we have experts at CHAMP that can probably explain it a lot better than I did. But if you go to our website, you can go on there and see some of the tools that we have that can help you figure out what might be the stressors that you find most challenging, and then how to adapt and grow from those, and turn it maybe not necessarily into a positive experience, but at least one that's tolerable.
Got it. I'll be looking that up when I get back to the website, of course.
I just want to say you touched upon something that is one of my very, very favorite things to talk about, and that is PTSD. About stressors and about how we use and can utilize some of those stressors as positive things. Because I think that a lot of the times when we run into serious issues, it's because we've lost control over something, whether it's our bodies or our minds or our sleep or our coping mechanisms, or we start introducing negatives into that, utilizing alcohol or substances in order to compensate, or even for people who think that they're not doing the same thing, but they are, by driving 120 on a motorcycle down the highway because they're seeking something and they've lost control over how to gain that thing peacefully. So I want to touch about that because I've said, and this isn't for everyone, I'm not a psychologist, but I have seen positives in my PTSD. I've seen the things that when I'm in control and when I'm in a good headspace, that's been a survival mechanism that I think has kept humans alive for thousands and thousands and thousands of years of society. It makes sure that I just check my doors and my doors are locked, and I make sure that I don't do anything dumb. I don't put myself in situations. I know where my exits are. But once I've done those things, when I'm in control, I can move past that. I don't obsess over them. I can triage threats because not everything I see on the side of the road is an IED anymore. That may seem like a really roundabout way of sort of commenting on what you said. Maybe I overexpanded upon something that you didn't mean that in that level of complexity, but I think that plays in so much about the mindset and the body and really the spirit of total force fitness. And so I wanted to touch on that. And I wanted you to, if you could expand a little bit upon the components that make up that total force fitness in the military community, because I think that there's a kind of a scary culture of people embracing these negative things, whether it's alcohol, whether it's performance enhancing drugs. People embrace that stuff like it's, you know, like it's a part of the culture and it should be accepted, when really it takes a real leader to say, I'm not going to do that stuff. I don't, you know, me not drinking is the reason I am who I am right now. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's just when I got hurt, I didn't have that as a backup coping mechanism. And I'm barely who I am now, for better, for worse. I'm barely here, y'all, but things are great now. And I don't know that I would be who I was if I had those issues in my life. To clarify, can you tell me a little bit, expand upon that total force fitness in the military community, and how you have to sort of overcome that mindset sometimes?
Well, again, it's like, you've unpacked a lot here, and so it's
sorry.
no, that's good. But that shows how the complexity of the human body, the human mind. And to take it a step further, it's like, who is the worst person to ask what their stress levels are like?
Probably the person themselves.
Exactly. I used to love that. I used to ask that question all the time when I taught. I'm like, and you'd have a lot of people that would they'd look around the room and they'd look at everybody else, and it's like, it's you, because I remember whenever I used to talk about sleep and the importance of sleep, and I'd always ask people how many had 6 hours of sleep last night, how many people had 5, and it almost became like a badge of honor to get less and less. But little do we know how much damage we're doing by doing that, because now you're lacking sleep. It's affecting your physiological composition, your hormones that help control the body, and then it makes it, it puts us out of balance. And so then you stay out of balance, and then you're like, okay, now how do I get back in balance? And you're to that point where it's like, you don't even recognize that you may not be in balance. And I'm standing off center here because, it's just the point. After a while it becomes normal. It's like, I'll go to Adam. It's like, what's one of the things in the aviation community that can really mess people up when you're flying at night? What's one of the illusions there?
Oh man, is this an IP check ride? I'm gonna fail.
Well, it's like, if you get into a constant angle bank turn, there's something there that you can suffer from, such as the leans, because your mind and your vestibular system kind of compensate for that, and the next
kind of regulates it.
Yeah, and when you roll out of the turn, then the body's like, wow, I'm not straight and level anymore, when you actually might be straight and level, but your body feels like, because you rolled out of a turn, that you're going the opposite way. So our body likes to try and keep us in check, but sometimes it's hard. And that's why having those tools, and we have a lot of the tools on the website there, but it could be, for some individuals, it could be a social network. Maybe you're lacking a social network, and having that social network there, you can ask them, or they can, get to know you well enough that they're like, hey, CJ, I think, let's have a talk. Let's go for a walk. Or, maybe because you're not working out the right way, or not working out enough, where you're reducing some of those stress levels and bringing them down, so that it helps you get rid of some of the day-to-day grind, let alone some of that you may have packed a while ago because of your service to the country, and you don't realize that now it's coming out and starting to affect you. So it's being able to maybe identify that that those things are going on, or having those people that are there that can help you identify that those things are going on, so that you can get back into balance and stay like you said, it sounds like you're in a really good place now.
Mhm.
But like I said, I would just point people to some of the tools that we have on the website that they can use to be able to hopefully get back into that balance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Like I said, I did kind of unpack a little bit on you. Probably felt like I was laying on a couch, sort of unloading on you. Should have had a rag in your hand, wiping off the bar table. But I absolutely appreciate you, you being willing to talk about this, because I think it's something that whether we know it or not, you're going to look back and realize we've been dealing with this stuff our whole lives, and putting a name to it actually really helped you identify the quote unquote enemy, which is, as you mentioned earlier, usually ourselves.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of research done on stress, and for people in the military, one of the studies they actually did did a survey of experience or events in life, and then they ranked them, and then they gave those items a number, and it could be everything from getting married to changing a job to moving to not sleeping properly. And so this survey came out with a hierarchy of items. And obviously some of the things that were the highest ones you'd probably expect, but like a death of a family member, extremely high. That's a very stressful event. Moving or changing jobs is another thing that's very high. And if you were to go and have people that are in the military, check off those items, especially during a PCS, permanent change of station, most people are in that red zone automatically just because of the PCS. So, and the red zone being obviously you're in an area where you've got a lot of stress, and if you don't realize it, and if you don't do anything about it, you could likely have an injury or an accident or get hurt, in the next few months after that, because you're so focused on everything else that you're not taking care of yourself. And so first of all, being able to recognize that you're under a high stress situation, I mean, I think that's the key right there, to be able to help you be able to get back into the center and into the balance, so that you are, being able to take on those challenges and not get, you just bend as opposed to getting injured by them.
I remember that hierarchical list that you're talking about. And specifically, I think, they started sharing it, or at least seemingly when I had, PCSs and moves, and it was like, holy crap, I'm going through like 7 of the top 10. No wonder I'm on edge. But, that's also a byproduct of the military service and the job, that we're doing, and these external things, these external factors that are happening to you that are not necessarily within your control. And so that's why, like, I'm so excited for the work that you guys are doing to help bring these things into awareness. But not only that, with a plethora of resources and programs and people there to really help service members move through understanding what's happening externally, but also internally, and how they can mitigate, some of these things. And I would say the work that you're doing has impacts far beyond, just the current service member too, because it's such a hard thing to transition out of the military, out of that, especially for us, that wartime, 5, 10, 15, 20 years of, constant war. And then you're going back into society that it doesn't necessarily look the same that when you left, and not having these tools in your toolkit, then you're trying to figure out how to put out these fires that you don't even know where the fire's coming from. And I'm glad to see you guys on the precipice of that. So I guess my question would be, why, from your perspective, and maybe both of you could quickly kind of tag on this, but why is CHAMPS more important than ever, for our nation, from your perspective, Captain Linderman, and from your perspective, Andrea?
Well, like I said, I think CHAMP runs the spectrum, I think, of age groups, because we have resources for younger individuals. We also have resources for older individuals. In fact, one of the things that we just rolled out was something called RX3, which is rehab, refit, and return to duty. And Joe, you were talking about some of the physical injuries you've had. This is a tool for, service members, for veterans, for family members that, I know for me, I can usually tell, like, for instance, whenever I get stressed out, it's like my diet changes, I can't sleep as well. And one of the things that I can use to help combat that is being able to work out. But if that's taken away because I've got an injury, it makes it difficult. Well, we have a tool there that was just rolled out called RX3, where it's for injuries that are not, that don't need surgery, but are injuries like maybe you got a little, injury in your shoulder. But these are exercises that you can do to help you get back into shape and to help rehab that injury and hopefully help you get back into a good space. So to answer your question, I think, CHAMP has different tools on the website that may be useful for either one person at one particular time or at different times. But there are a lot of tools on there that can at least get people thinking about, what it is that they might be able to be doing better to help them keep that human performance optimization going forward.
And I would add, there are a lot of forces around us all right now. We're in different times, really. We're post-COVID, and there's just, as a nutritionist, we know that it's not just the food you eat, and it really is this holistic approach to the total person. The Veterans Administration also align with the Total Force Fitness with their whole person health, as well as our federal partner at the National Center for Integrative Health at NIH. And a lot of the information that they present is in line with what CHAMP does. But I think CHAMP really serving our entire community, again, not just the service member, family members, as a resource on, how one, part of that paradigm can really affect the other piece.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead, please.
No, and I was going to kind of add to that because I think, one of the things too that I didn't hit on too much, but like a lot of the information that we're putting out at CHAMP and why it makes CHAMP so vital is that it's research-based, it's evidence-based. And some of the research is being done by CHAMP, some it's been, CHAMP and collaborators, and some of it's just information that we've collected along the way. But it is we are a defense center of excellence, and it's because we are tried and true, and the things that people are doing are only good of the current state of science, and CHAMP is still continuing to go out there and continue to pursue the science that, we can, hopefully continue that path towards human performance optimization.
I just want to say that we are in, Andrea, what you just said hit the nail on the head in that we are in different times. We may be the first generation that is aware that these kids coming in after us have got it worse than we did. And I don't know how to describe it. We're in a different world, and these 18-year-olds that are coming into the military right now have dealt with distractions like the internet and things like that have hurt them in a lot of ways. And so, the time that you guys have spent with us talking about this, I think that a lot of people underestimate the problems that we're going to start seeing with this, with this younger group of people that have had not only harder lives in a lot of ways, but had to deal with COVID and the world shutting down right in the middle of them learning how to socialize with people. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And we've got a lot to work through. But I think that, with CHAMP, I think that that's something that's really a fantastic resource for our military members, coming in, and your time that you've spent with us means the world to me. Before we sign off, I know you touched a little bit on something you wanted to mention, but is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up or that you want to share with our alphas that we didn't discuss?
Well, I just wanted to thank all of you for this opportunity because, what you just said, and I'm going to hold up my phone here, which we're all attached to, right?
Yeah.
But we know those young service members potentially may be getting some information off of Instagram, TikTok, and to be able to have the opportunity to discuss the evidence-based information at CHAMP via the public-facing websites at HPRC and OPS is very important, because we want to make sure they have the information they need from reputable sources.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, when I'm in front of a big audience of service members and I remind them, like, know what you're taking. This is your life, and just be aware of where you're getting that information. So really wanted to thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, I would like to take this time to thank you as well, and thank you all for your service. And I know, like, for me, CHAMP is something that's near and dear to my heart. We've got, a staff of almost 80 now that are like our team of experts. And I came to CHAMP a couple years ago, and unfortunately, I'm moving on to another position here soon, just because I'm in the military. And it's like, it's that time where you PCS. And but I first found out about CHAMP over 12 years ago. And it was mainly because I'd get asked a lot of questions, a lot of tough questions. And my background at the time, prior to coming to the military, was physiology. I went through all my education, and then I joined the Navy because I found out about this career, and I'm like, this is great. I want to serve my country. I want to continue to help with, human performance. And I'd get asked tough questions by the crew members that they're in the classroom. And I'm like, well, this is my thought, but don't just take my opinion for it. And I'd go and do what a lot of people do. I'd go and ask Dr. Google. And even though I'm older than Dr. Google, I started going to the internet to find resources. And that's when I'd get asked questions about sleep. I'd get asked questions about supplements. And although, like, I'm a nutrition enthusiast, I am by no means an expert, and so I would have to go and figure out, well, where can I get the right answers? And that's when I was turned on to CHAMP, by doing a Google search, and the information that was there for me was a game changer. I was able to, get all this information, get these resources, and then share them with other individuals. And for me, coming to CHAMP, at this stage in my life and at this point in my career, it's been very rewarding, especially to work with teammates like Andrea and the other members of CHAMP. It's one of those things where I'm going to continue to be a big band or a drum major for CHAMP, and beating the drum every chance I get, because these resources are wonderful. And like I said, they're made for the military, but they're good for you. Anybody that can get to know us.
And trust me, we're going to miss Captain Linderman. And I'm personally really going to miss him. And it's just been amazing to have him with us for a few years.
Well, I can say that the work that you guys are doing at CHAMP and have been doing is absolutely critical. And thank you so much for being the stewards and the shepherds of it that you have. And thank you for joining us here today on the show. So we're going to have links to all your social connections and anything we talked about in the show notes. Captain Linderman, will you tell us one more time what the URL is where folks can go to learn more about CHAMP?
Well, we have two, and a lot of times if you just do a Google search for HPRC, that will take you to the first one. It's actually HPRC-online, and I think it's /.org. Actually, I can read it.
.org. It's HPRC-online.org.
Yeah. So and the other one is ops.org.
Well, you know that I'm going to be going on back to that website about a dozen times. Plus, I got to reach out to the subject matter expert we were talking about for sleep. But anyway, Alphas, be sure to visit the website. I want to thank you both, Mr. Juice and Miss Andrea. Thank you for your time today.
Mr. Juice.
The Juice. It may stick. We'll work it out until the the classified reason why your call sign is what it is. Mr. Juice, it is. All right, Alphas, stick around for some scuttlebutt right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
Be the one to save one veteran.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one to reach out when a veteran is struggling.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
Okay, Alphas, we hope you had a great break. Now it's time for some scuttlebutt.
Yeah. Okay. And we're going to start off kind of going back in time, or present day, or back in time recently, because I'm talking about
Past,
the Band
present.
of Brothers. Now, am I talking about the Band of Brothers TV show, or am I talking about the Band of Brothers like the folks that actually fought in World War II? Well, yes, sort of. Band of Brothers cast is dropping into Normandy on March 25th, 2024. Several actors from the beloved 2001 HBO, and that's the brief way back. Anyway, that miniseries Band of Brothers have recently traveled to Camp oh my gosh, Army folks, help me out. Takawa, Georgia, to begin airborne qualification training. It was the first part of the Currahee to Normandy, a nonprofit effort to honor and the courage and sacrifices of all men and women who fought to liberate Nazi-occupied Europe 8 decades ago. It will see the cast jump into Normandy during the 80th anniversary to commemorate Operation Overlord, which began, of course, as we all know, if you know your history, D-Day, June 6, 1944. While the Band of Brothers cast members underwent a significant amount of training for the series, they never actually made the jump from an aircraft. Yeah, I don't know if I was an actor that I would be, brave enough to do it either. Now, they are fully trained, qualified, just as their real-world counterparts from Easy Company, 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. The actors plan to make 2 jumps into Normandy wearing authentic uniforms and gear, and even better, they want to do it from the Placid Lassity. Now, this made me cringe a little bit. That's the Douglas C-47 Skytrain that actually participated in the D-Day invasion. And that makes me even more scared for them. Not only jumping out of a quasi-operable aircraft from, the 1940s, but also with parachutes in period appropriate attire. So good luck, crew. Thoughts, guys?
Good news about that is if the plane starts to go down, they already have a plan. They're just going to jump out anyway, right? You don't need a plane that can land. You just need a plane that can go up.
Joe, if I may weigh in, I remember I had just become aircrew qualified on the C-17, and I'm like, hey, you guys, where are the parachutes serviceable? I went to do my due diligence and make sure everything was good. And they're like, the load master kind of looks at me and gives me some major side eye. And he's like, hey, by the time you realize we're going to go down, we'll already be a lawn dart. So,
like
reassuring. Thanks. Yeah, I went through airborne school at Fort Benning in 2004, and I was it was in between my sophomore and junior year, so I was a cadet, and we got these special slots to be able to go. And I distinctly remember maybe some of the thoughts that the actors were going through, like, am I really going to do this? Like, is this safe? Should I be jumping out of a plane? And you ultimately have to come to the mindset of just like, well, I'm glad I wasn't like the first guys that did this, that were like testing it.
Yeah.
And like the Army's been training people on this for, over 100 years or thereabouts. So, I just have to reasonably follow the instructions relatively goodly and then just fall down like I've been practicing for the last 3 weeks, because that's what airborne school is. It's practicing falling down from various heights all the way until you get 5 jumps, and then you graduate. And those jumps are like 30 seconds of pure joy with 6 to 8 to sometimes 12 hours of hurry up and painfully waiting and practicing falling down until you jump out. So it's a great experience, and the opportunity to get to do it for the 80th anniversary, especially for the actors that did that series. I know it's going to be special for them. I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing.
Well, as a side note, I've got a new shark suit that I just designed. I'd love for you to try out, Adam. Should be completely immune to all bites. So I think Stacy's got a little more information on this too, but I will say though that I think it's cool that they're doing it, because I think in you know, when you train up to do something like that, when you train up to play the parts of all these really incredible people that served, this is probably like the icing on the cake to say, okay, now I've done some of what they did to get that true feeling of accomplishment.
All right, Alphas. National Commander Seehafer will be in Normandy for the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. If you want to learn more about that trip and the jump, or even watch the series, visit legion.org in early June for updates of his travels and any of the ceremonies going on.
Or you can go to https://www.military.com/off-duty /2024/2019/band-of-brother.
Abandon all hope. Just go to legion.org. It'll be there.
All right. INDEF DOD IDs inconvenience air travelers from military.com. So military retirees and some spouses or dependents whose next generation Department of Defense identification cards have an INDEF expiration date, which stands, of course, for indefinite, because I will live forever. They continue to face problems using their IDs to traverse Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, as we know and love, at U.S. airports. A potential solution under consideration at TSA, the agency drops the IDs known as US IDs as acceptable forms of identification when stricter travel requirements are implemented next year. And this is sure to irritate those who like using their military IDs instead of a state driver's license or passport for travel. I'm one of those people because I don't really know why. I just have historically always done that, and it is going to be an irritation and an inconvenience. So according to TSA Press Secretary R. Carter Langston, the problem centers around US IDs that lack an expiration date. The INDEF designation cannot be read by the TSA's credential authentication technology. When the CAT unit does not detect an expiration date, the CAT screen will display an expired alert, according to Langston. So what they're doing now, and I actually had to deal with this when I traveled recently, is that you slide your ID, your driver's license that they make you use now, and it scans it almost like a credit card, pops it back out. They take a picture of your face. Coming through Atlanta, you hear a lot of scary stories about, you know, people traveling and kidnapping and stuff like that. Not from Atlanta, but just it's an international hub. And so I'm here for it, taking pictures of people going through, because that way, if somebody tries to sneak somebody through who shouldn't be there, there should no longer be a way to do that. So this might be a good or a bad thing, but the TSA officer is supposed to ask another acceptable form of ID that can be read by the CAT unit, Langston said. If the passenger does not have another acceptable form of ID, the officer will conduct a manual inspection of the DoD ID presented as these IDs are currently acceptable forms of ID, Langston said in a statement. In my experience, they just ask you for your driver's license already. But the issue is largely a matter of inconvenience, since many people travel with a driver's license, passport, or other form of identification. But for DoD ID card holders, it could become a major problem beginning May 7th, 2025, when all travelers and visitors to the U.S. will be required to have a passport, a state-verified real ID, or another form of identification designated as acceptable by TSA. You can also use a face tattoo of your name. That's not true. Don't do that. Since the Real ID Act of 2005 was passed, Defense Department ID holders have been told their IDs are compliant and acceptable in lieu. I wasn't going to laugh until I saw Stacey laughing at me. Don't encourage me. I have a problem.
I have a QR code on my wrist. I'll just have them scan that.
Nice.
However, if you're going to vote, we don't require any ID. Oh, sorry.
Isn't that crazy?
Adam.
Oh.
That's a
I'm
bad
sorry.
one.
I didn't mean to derail us.
But you are supposed to have a state-issued ID, and that is compliant and acceptable in lieu of a real ID. Okay, so Department of Defense IDs have been told their IDs are compliant and acceptable in lieu of a real ID, and many have not bothered to get a real ID compatible state identification card. Well, got to now.
When I first got medically retired, I was issued a blue retiree ID card.
Mhm.
But my husband, when I then became my husband's, I hate this word, dependent, which I'm nobody's dependent on no one. Anyway, they gave me what they call a salmon colored card, which is, let's face it, freaking pink. So anyway,
It's the color of your shirt. You can't be too mad.
listen, I like pink when it's my choice. I don't want
That's
it
true.
pushed on me.
That does
Because the
matter.
military's assumption that every freaking dependent has to be a woman dependent on a man. And if my favorite color's gotta be pink. So when I went through the base gate and I was traveling with my husband, I would pull my retiree card out, my blue one. And he's like, why do you do that? You have your dependent ID card, and nothing against dependents out there getting your, all obsessed.
Yeah.
Well,
But I'm just saying, like, for me, it was an identity crisis. Now
Mhm.
I just use my driver's license. I'm like, I don't care. Why was I making such a big deal out of it? It's just a freaking ID just to get you somewhere.
Because
Anyway.
it takes a lot to be able to get that military ID, and then like Joe was saying, it becomes a part of you. And all I hear is like, a little bit of like bureaucracy and incompatibility with, systems. So like me as the user, as the veteran service member, I'm like, tell me again why my military government issued ID is not sufficient over a state ID or, a passport. It's like, we got to go back into the land of like, well, none of this makes sense, but you're going to do it this way because this is how we're going to do it. And that's why. And don't ask any questions.
And
Yeah.
I've been with you, Stacy, when somebody asked if you were a dependent. And so I know that it not necessarily, I don't know, maybe sore spot is exactly the word, maybe not be a sore spot, but it is irritating because you're on, like, at the very start of a conversation, put to a point to where you have to say something you shouldn't have to say, which is, no, actually, I served myself. And mentally you're going and you're having to tame that part of your brain that's like, I have seen and done things you cannot begin to imagine. And you have to go, but this is a person who doesn't know. They don't know. And the reason why we serve is so that they don't have to find out. So I can see why this would be a problem for you. It makes sense. I don't think you're, being unreasonable. I think that you should pull that blue ID out and use it every chance you get.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Well, I'll stick with my driver's license. I'm good now.
Well, of course, we will have the link in the show notes. I won't try to read it out to you this time. And if you want to know more, it will be on our Legion notes at themilitary.com.
The Army's Future Vertical Lift Initiative experiences a hard landing. According to Forbes, 400 vertical flight engineers have been laid off by Sikorsky, a Lockheed Martin company, after the U.S. Army decided to cancel the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft, or FARA program, which was supposed to be the next generation rotorcraft. It said that the Army launched the FARA program in 2018 and has already spent more than $2 billion on the now derailed program. Coinciding with the change in direction, the Army said there is to be an aviation investment rebalance, ordering more UH-60 Mike Blackhawks and Boeing CH-47 Clock 2 Chinooks. My question is, why are they not ordering more Apaches? They've also committed
not enough good pilots, baby.
What message are we trying to send here? More 60s and Chinooks? Come on. They've what? Go ahead, Stacey.
No, I can confirm. I read the same article, and I think that buying more Apaches actually was on the payroll. But I'll let you finish for our listeners.
They've also committed to the continued investment of the development of the Future Long Range Assault Aircraft FLRAA program, which is produced by Bell Flight. While 400 engineers were laid off from the FARA program, many more were transferred over to the FLRAA program. Thankfully, too, it takes 3 to 5 years to build up talented aircraft design teams, especially those who must pass the rigorous national defense citizenship and security clearance requirements to participate in government projects like these. Look, I can fully attest. I got to participate in part of the Army acquisition process. So when I was a company commander, I fielded what's now the first Echo models, Apache Echo models. So it was a significant upgrade and enhancement to the aircraft, physical features, to the systems and hardware. And we had to go out to the National Training Center. And well, first we went to Boeing. I signed for the first 5 tail numbers, like tail numbers 001 through 005. We did 3 weeks of training with Boeing experimental test pilots to get trained up on the differences in the aircraft. And then we took them and flew them from Arizona to NTC and validated them with every general officer that had anything to do with the Apache and the acquisition process, going through all sorts of different missions and things like that. So that was an eye-opening experience to see the challenges of the acquisition cycle for aviation. What I mean by that is, by the time they develop something and then get it into the aircraft, the rate at which technology has been increasing, Moore's law has been, doubling, I think, every 18 to 24 months. And so by the time they would get some of these updated systems and things into the aircraft, they would be obsolete with the technology. And you just have to get to a place where you would have a cutoff. And so I just use that as like one example for some of the challenges as you're looking to the future of aviation, especially future of vertical lift. And like, these are really in-depth conversations around manned, unmanned. What does that look like? What does the future battlefield look like? How do you incorporate the relevant advancements in technology to be able to be efficient, to be able to do the mission anywhere that you need to do, but also to have that aviator or pilot ready for the mission. And so this program and scrapping it is also not something new. This has happened before with, the Comanche aircraft. And so, as the good book says, there's nothing new under the sun. But what's your guys' perspective when you hear this?
I'm just super excited to see the Facebook posts that are like, they could have given 2 billion people $2 billion each and we'd still, it's always like the math. You're like, did you even like remotely try to sit here and think that through? I'm so excited. It's gonna be like, we could all have $1 billion in the bank.
Well, I don't know if it was $2 billion not well spent, because the $2 billion went somewhere to development technology, to, fostering engineers who are coming up with new schematics. I don't know how engineering works, but, it takes some brain power. So I don't know if it's money poorly spent. And as Adam so eloquently put, Uncle Sam seems to just like let it rain all the time. Let's talk about $50 toilet seats. But anyway, I think the point is, we're constantly having programs that are going up and are falling back. What is the biggest concern, and my takeaway from the article, Adam, was talking about how the government has to compete for the very few qualified engineers that have a STEM background, or as an artist, I like to say STEAM, because art does kind of play a part in this. Anyway, they're competing now with privatized organizations like Amazon and Google. And these folks pay a heck of a lot more than our government could ever afford. So when these programs fold, those 400 engineers, we may never get them back. So I guess the bigger question this leaves me with is, how are we training the next generation of engineers? How are we fostering them to continue to evolve that technology so that we can stay on the tip of the spear when it comes to, I don't want to say world military dominance, but at least staying competitive,
It's preventative
really good
preparation.
Point. Yeah, it gets into a conversation on like future workforce, like what is the future workforce? And it's not even just these engineers. Like let's just be perfectly honest with AI, coming on board. The world is going to look drastically different in the next 10 years and beyond. Like we talk about, how much it's changed in the current state. It's wild to think like where it's going to be. So I think it's a question for the engineers, and it's a question, beyond just that. And it's a very human question, right now, that we have to look at these, old systems and jobs and things and say, how do we, move this forward? And does that need to exist? Do we need a team of 400 engineers working on an aircraft that's now never going to see the light of day. So,
I mean, I guess it's better that they cut when they realize it needs to be cut, because, you know, there's nothing worse. And I think we've all been stuck on projects that took more of us than it was worth, and finished them up to our detriment. And so, you know, I guess it's good to be able to step away, but, you know, I just wanted to jump in here and say that art was supposed to be ours and AI was supposed to take care of the dumb stuff, but here we are.
all right.
Hey, Alphas, thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, or send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We will
Or salamis.
or salamis. Don't forget to go and listen to all those back issues of the podcast and subscribe. We will see you all next week.